So what we'd like to do in this video is we'd like to take this structure here, this atomic resolution structure, we'd like to add this to this lipid bilayer that's drawn here. We want to have an overlay looking like this protein is embedded in this membrane. Okay, so this video is going to show you how to do that. First thing we need to do is we need to render a picture of this protein, and then we're going to transfer it over, and we're going to use the image tracing method to draw a depiction of this photograph, try to reproduce it, but in a vector-based graphic way. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to save it as a picture. So I have this previously typed in. It's a PNG, saying you want to save it as a PNG, and I just have example.png, that's the file name, comma, the width in pixels, 300 pixels wide, and the height equals 200 pixels tall, and then the DPI is 300. So I'm just going to press enter. Okay, it saved it, and that's what the figure looks like. So I'm going to open this file. First, let me show you where it is. So there it is. And I'm just going to click and drag it into Adobe Illustrator. You see that plus copy? There you go. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Now I want to trace over this object. So I'm going to click on it. Click on Image Trace. So it says it's with a large image. That's okay. If it's a large image, it will take a long time to trace over. Now you can see that this looks pretty ugly, right? Because it's really just overlaying it with black, and we certainly don't want to do that. So we need to change the properties of this image tracing. Again, what it's doing is it's trying to draw objects to reproduce that original image. Obviously, it did a pretty poor job here. So I'm going to change the properties by going over here to Image Trace Panel. If you don't see this control panel up here, go up to Window and click Control, and that'll show that will make this appear. Click on the Image Trace properties, and I recommend doing the low color. And the reason why is because the high color doesn't allow you to remove or to ignore white. And we really need to ignore white. Okay, so that looks fairly okay. So I'm going to click on Advanced, and I'm going to ignore white. Now, every time you change the setting, it's going to have to retrace it. Okay, ooh, that looks pretty good. Alright, and now I want to add more colors, so I'm going to add 30. And 30 is the maximum here. But it should be enough. I mean, depending on the size of the figure that you want to draw. And that looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but probably good enough. So I'm going to reduce the size. So hold Shift and bring it down. I'm going to click Cancel. Now, okay, so I'm glad it did this. The problem that I just created is I shrunk down the image size. And we don't want to have it retrace every time we do that. So I'm going to hold Control and press Z. It's going to have to retrace. Okay, so that's why you don't want to do that. So make sure things look still good. What you want to do is you want to click Expand. Now, the problem with expanding is once you do it, you can't change the tracing results anymore. So once you do it, it's kind of done. So this allows you to shrink the object down to the size you want, and it doesn't have to retrace. So it's not perfect, but you know, depending on the size of your figure, if you know, if this is almost a whole page, chances are what you're going to have is, I'm just holding the shift key, probably going to be about this big, and that's pretty good. I don't think anyone will tell the difference. Oh, notice that my stroke size stayed the same. Obviously I want this to be reduced a bit, so I'm going to click on this and then hold shift and click on, hold control, hold shift and click on this. So I have those two lines selected, and hold on. Actually, I'm just going to select all three of these objects, hold shift, click again. So now I can change that stroke width. Something more reasonable. Anyways, so now it certainly looks like it's embedded into the membrane. So that's how you add Pymol atomic structures to an Adobe Illustrator document. And notice that you can see the membrane behind it. That's kind of the key here. And if you want this to be better, like you notice that it's not quite right, if you really want it to be perfect, just in this original file, just save it as a higher resolution. You know, just increase the number of pixels, and that's going to allow that Adobe Illustrator to trace it a little more accurately. You can also use the high color. The problem with the high color is you can't ignore the white. So what you would need to do in that case is you would, let me copy that over. So if you want to use the high color method, which you might get a little more more accurate representation. So click on this and click on high color. Notice that you have a lot more, you can add more colors. So it's a number of objects used to represent that. And notice that this is almost a perfect representation. I mean, if you can even create even 100 colors and it would be even closer. Obviously this is kind of unnecessary if you're reducing the object to, you know, something that's, you know, 1 by 1 inch. But notice how you can't ignore white. Okay, so what do? Well, you expand like you did before. Okay. Then you go in there, and it's probably better to add, you know, something behind it so that you can see what you're doing. Let me just, I don't know, some color that's not shown here, which I don't know, is very dark brown. Make it for something like that. Now I'm going to right click, arrange, send to the back. And now I'm going to double click on this. And now I have to go, I can click on it and delete, but I'd have to go through here and delete each and every one. And it's quite a tedious job to do, but it will achieve the same results as the low color, but it would be a little better because you would notice that the resolution of the coloring is much higher. So this would be if you're trying to draw a larger image and you just absolutely wanted it to be very precise. But notice that this is quite tedious, but It's not as bad as you would think. So although it seems like it's taking a long time, it probably would take 30 minutes to go through here and delete everything, which in the grand scheme of things is not a lot of time. It might seem like a lot of time, but it's really not. Anyways, that would be how you would make it a perfect, high resolution. But notice that this is so small on this side that you can't really tell. But um, again, if you're drawing a larger image, then you might want to spend the time to delete each and every white object and have it in the high color mode. Alright, that's how you transfer things over from Pymol to Adobe Illustrator.